This game has been generational and well ahead of its time. It's crazy because there are many people who have started playing this game in different points in their lives. There are many who played it when it first came out back in 2001 and 2002, and even all the way to this day, there are content creators who just started playing Final Fantasy X for the very first time. Like with many RPG games, this one had its share of bosses, ranging from characters and enemies we come across in the story we must beat in order to progress, enemies we can create by achieving certain feats that provide more of a challenge, and of course, post-game enemies and bosses we come across after we finish the main story or reach the point before the end of the story that prove to be much more difficult than all the other types of bosses, as they should be. I have a couple updates to the channel before we start with today's video. I want to begin by announcing that membership is available. If you enjoy the videos I put out and want to continue supporting the channel's growth and progression, you can become a member so you can have access to the badges, early access videos, and member exclusive videos. My goal is to invest more time into this channel and continue producing more quality level content for all of you while evolving the way I edit and present these kinds of videos. I am also now streaming on Twitch, and my schedule will be posted throughout the videos I present so you know when I'll be on. I plan to use that channel to just play, hang out with all of you when I'm not making videos, and just having a fun time. I'm currently playing through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Dragon's Dogma 2 alternatively, so you can see more than just the usual content there. There will be links in the description below for my Twitch, Discord, etc. so you know where to find me. Now let's begin. In today's video, I am going to be mostly taking a trip down memory lane, as I will be ranking the 5 difficult bosses I came across when I was playing Final Fantasy X. Now, I started playing this game when I was 8 years old, so the 8-year-old me would have had a lot of trouble with some of these bosses on the list. I would imagine that if I started playing this game at my current age, I feel like I might have an easier time coming across these bosses. Granted, the state of combat in RPG games has evolved to a more dynamic and action-packed gameplay, but I can't speak for everyone. If you started playing Final Fantasy X at a later age, let me know your experiences with the gameplay and the bosses throughout the story in the comments section below. Of course, this is based on my opinion and everyone's list is different. Let me know what your list looks like below. Note that I will not be including any of the Dark Aeons nor the Monster Arena bosses on this list, as they are obviously notches above the storyline bosses. These will strictly be bosses we come across in the main story from the start until the end. So without further ado, here are my 5 most difficult bosses in Final Fantasy X. This first one may seem unusual to start at number 5, and there were other bosses I considered putting in this spot, but I ultimately gave it to the Wendigo battle at Macalania Lake. The Wendigo itself was already very annoying, but what made it worse were the 2 Guado that were flanking it. Of course, we come across variants of this monster later in the game that are easier to deal with, since the party would have progressed much by then. But at the time we faced a Wendigo, apart from its relatively high HP, it is also capable of dealing heavy damage with just one attack. Not to mention the Guado will support it by healing it with potions when it is damaged, as well as shell and protect on it when they die, making it even tougher to defeat. Not to mention inflicting it with the Berserk stat. We could stop the healing effects from happening by stealing from the Guado, but let's be honest, the 8-year-old in me would not have known to do that, so I was struggling until I figured it out. When the Wendigo is below half of its HP, it will start to counter every attack, so it will deal damage at twice the rate that it normally would up until that point. So from a purely physical standpoint, this boss is tough. And when you defeat it, it's not like you can just keep escaping, it actually sinks the party below the lake and it requires sins to save them from move on from the story. For a number 5 entry, it is tough, which is why I gave it a spot on this list. I don't know if it's something about the events that happened at Macalania, or maybe it has something to do with the cold vibes, or maybe something about Seymour, but coming in at number 4 is the boss battle that happens right before Wendigo, which is the battle against Seymour and Anima. And yes, I am going to include them both on the same entry because you battle them in one sequence. This battle starts with Seymour, who is, once again, flanked by 2 Guado. Maybe it has something to do with the Guado being involved. Seymour boasts of pretty strong magic attacks as they deal moderate damage to the party. While this first part is not too difficult, it is nothing more than a prelude to the main battle, which is when he summons Anima. And if you let Seymour do major damage to the party before he summons, then you are in a lot of trouble. It will cast its signature attack, Pain, which will insta-kill a party member every other turn. Now you have a bit of a breather since it spends other turns boosting, which gives you a free chance to attack and causes Anima to take 50% more damage. But if you have to spend one of those turns having to revive someone because they got killed earlier and have to repeat that loop every time someone dies due to pain, In fact, with this pattern, it is just better to summon Shiva and have her single-handedly take on Anima. She doesn't die to pain and is much faster, allowing her to have more turns and even heal herself with Blizzard if she is low on HP. But wait, it gets even better, because after Anima dies, Seymour will return and his magic somehow gets even stronger, allowing him to cast 2 spells, but at least he is alone this time. Well, to be fair, I think what made this battle really tough for me playing through it was having to deal with Anima and her ability to cast instant death, but summoning Shiva does make a life a whole lot easier. But even without that, Seymour and the supporting Guado can be a pain still because of the debuffs they cost to the party and buffs they cast onto themselves, making it one very chaotic battle. Coming in the middle of the list, we have Sin, the main monster of the game. And no, we are not talking about any of its Sin spawn, although I did consider Sin spawn Gi from Operation Mihen as number 5 on this list. We are talking about the main battle that happens before we enter Sin. Honestly, this battle is a timer, but the timer is tough because Sin is boasting 120,000 HP, meaning if we don't get rid of all of that HP in a certain amount of turns, then Sin will annihilate the party and end the battle completely. Another thing that makes this tough is that Sin starts from far away, meaning our close combat characters won't be able to hit it until about halfway through, so we have to rely on magic and ranged attacks until it becomes within range. Honestly, nothing too spectacular about Sin in terms of the attacks it does, as it doesn't do the biggest amount of damage, but the fact that there's a timer going on during this whole time, if you're not fast enough in speed and have access to quick hit, then without the use of Aeons, you're gonna have a hard time trying to whittle down that much HP before it hits its attack, which is why it's in this list, but it is not as difficult, annoying, and dare I say it, kind of traumatic as the next 2 entries. Well, coming down to the last 2 bosses, I have the second hardest boss be Seymour Flux. Now, I was really close to having him at number 1, which would have definitely caused debate, but hear me out. Seymour Flux is Seymour's 3rd form fighting the party during the story. He is fought at Mount Gagazet and is accompanied by Morty Orcus, similar to Seymour Natus. He is really difficult because of one reason and one reason only, and that is his Lance of Atrophy attack. Forget total annihilation, forget the fact that he casts Protect and Reflect throughout the battle, and also the fact that he can banish Aeons, not that I'm considering the Aeon Overdrive strategy to be a factor since that would make it too easy. When I first played against Seymour Flux, and I suddenly saw the zombie status inflicted on the party, I thought, okay, no big deal. Then I see him casting life on the party member, which instantly killed them. I just froze to the spot and thought, well, I did not prepare for that at all. So I ended up trying to juggle between dealing damage to him while reviving my allies, and well, that definitely didn't work because when he finally got to using total annihilation, I was done. And that overwhelming feeling I got was just a pain because of how much I had to go through just to be totally annihilated. I think there was a period of time in my early playthroughs of the game where I did not play the game at all and decided to play other games because I just could not pass Seymour Flux and the zombie status. Sometimes when a brand new attack or status condition just comes out of nowhere like an RKO and hit you like a ton of bricks, especially on my younger self, it was hard to bounce back until some time later. But looking back at it now, I have fond memories of it overall, but that's also why I put it in my number 2 spot. At last, but not least, we come to the main lady herself, Lady Unesa. Honestly, I had thoughts of putting her at number 2 and Flux number 1, because by this time I was a little more prepared for zombies, so when she casted it in form 2, I was able to control it more and prevent my characters from dying quickly. But man, Unesa is pretty much the queen of hacks. With her first form dealing counter status moves depending on what kind of damage you deal on her is kind of annoying, although her regular attacks don't deal a lot of damage, so that was a bit of a breather. Where it really hit home for me to put her at number 1 over Flux was the fact that she hits Mega Death at the start of her 3rd form. And personally, already after suffering the pain that was dealing with zombie against Seymour Flux, I made sure to cure myself of zombie status whilst fighting Unesa just to get hit with Mega Death on a fully cured party, causing all of them to die. Meaning a character with zombie has to be in the lineup before she goes to her 3rd form in order to keep battling, otherwise you start over. That is such a psychological move on Square Enix's part, and it doesn't help that these battles happen somewhat close to each other. Whew, that was a lot, and a bit of that kind of brought me down memory lane. I'll admit I had to go through a bit of tough memories from my childhood, but honestly I don't regret it one bit. I enjoyed the game back then and I still enjoy it now. Let me know what you thought of this list. If you liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content. Also, consider becoming a member if you want to further support the channel and have access to more exclusive and early access videos, and check out my Twitch streams on scheduled times. Other than that, this is Enzo signing out, and that, as they say, is that.